Welcome to CU Live. I'm Brent Warren, Urban Development Reporter for Columbus Underground, and I'm here today with Leah Evans, the Vice President of Real Estate Development for the affordable housing nonprofit Homeport. Welcome.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of start with that term, affordable housing, which is it's a broad one. It's also one that has almost been being pushed aside in favor of some. It's always changing. Attainable housing, workforce housing, used to be called low-income housing. But I wondered if we could just kind of go back and look at Homeport, like where does Homeport fit within the bigger housing market? Like what kind of stuff are you building and who's living in that housing?
Yeah, thank you, Brian.
Sure.
Yes, the affordable housing is this broad term, and when we think about it as a spectrum. Affordability is relative. I usually tell people what LeBron James can afford, I can't afford. So what affordability means to an individual is going to be varied. And we think of a spectrum of housing that includes our partners that work at the Community Shelter Board, in housing homeless shelters, Community Housing Network that does more permanent supportive, but then you move up this spectrum of people that are working that can't afford the market rate product that's out there, and that's the space that we've been in for 32 years. We have actively been developing for people that are about half of the area median income, and currently in Franklin County that's about $76,000 for 4 people.
Okay.
So we generally are serving a family, individuals that are making half of that. They're working in jobs that are $10, $11, $12 an hour, and so they really aren't being served by the marketplace, and that's where we found that we fit in best. We've had some great partnerships that have allowed us to creep up and do more in the revitalization and market rate space, but really our niche is that working families, working individuals, working seniors. We do house about 15 to 20% of our portfolio is senior housing, a growing need in our community, and we feel like that's where we fit best because of the package of services that we offer isn't just the housing, it isn't just the bricks and sticks, it really is about housing stability. One of our taglines is strong communities start at home, and we believe that means the built environment, but also the environment that we place that housing in and what's going on with that family or that individual that allow them to have housing stability. So we want you to move in, we want you to stay with us,
Right.
And we want you to have some financial success as well as being stable in the housing.
Right. So you have other services that you offer besides. You're not just building houses. You're there. You're with those people.
With the individual and with the neighborhood. And you know about our work in Milo Grogan. They've been a tremendous partner. They actually came to us, said, we see a housing gap in our neighborhood. Can you help us? And we started a dialogue a few years ago that now has resulted in the construction of 33 new homes, as well as almost $400,000 of neighborhood-based improvements that we've been able to leverage from some of our partners in owner-occupied repairs, commercial improvements, and other cleanups around the neighborhood.
You mentioned Milo Grogan, and I know you guys are kind of all over the place in different neighborhoods. Can you just talk about the development process? Like, how do you pick your sites? How long does it usually take to get a project built? That kind of
gracious.
thing. Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah,
it's a big one. So thank you for that, because it really is good real estate is good real estate. So when we go out to the marketplace, just like our market rate peers, our for-profit peers, we're looking for areas of opportunity where there's some appreciation, where there are amenities and services, where there's healthcare, where there are job centers, where there's good transportation. But we also have the benefit of being mission driven. And so when a community engages with us, I gave you Milo Grogan as an example, but also American Edition. That was a neighborhood that we started working with almost 15 years ago, where we felt like we had the capacity to come into the neighborhood with a housing product, but also to talk and work with the community about other improvements they wanted to see. So our development cycle is pretty long. Just on a traditional deal, we'll go find a site, and we are generally funded by tax credits. So that comes through a state agency that allocates those tax credits. So our projects could get started a year to 18 months before we know we're actually going to get funded. And then we go into the actual construction period. So sometimes we're 2 or 3 years out from when we will see a development actually be done and people moving in.
Yeah. And that includes neighborhood meetings, area commissions,
Yes.
all that. Yeah, yeah.
A lot of public comment, a lot of conversation.
Right.
We want our product to be welcomed. We want our projects to be a part of what's going on in the community. And so that does take, as you said, a lot of dialogue. People have an initial reaction to affordable housing
Yeah.
and, you know, the idea of public housing or Section 8. And we really work to have a conversation with the community about how they see their housing needs. Do you have people in your community that are making $10, $12 an hour?
Yeah.
Where do they live? Are they
Right.
commuting in?
Right.
A lot of our conversation, I used to work a lot in economic development. Everybody gets excited about economic development.
Right,
People
yeah.
want jobs,
Yeah.
Amazon, they want
Yeah,
those
yeah.
big projects. But for every one of those jobs, someone's driving somewhere, so that's a commute,
Right.
and someone's living somewhere,
Yeah,
so they have to live
exactly.
somewhere. So you have these other community impacts from economic development, which I think is what we're seeing even here in Central Ohio right now, is that we've had tremendous economic development growth and tremendous success in that space. Now, how do we bring the housing and transportation and community aspects, investments alongside that?
Do you have an overall strategy? I'm just curious because, like we mentioned, you've been in the Central City neighborhoods, and we write a lot about those, and there's a lot of change happening in those neighborhoods. And you've been building there. You've also been building in different suburban communities. Do you have a strategy moving forward where you hope to do more building in the suburbs, or what's the overall?
What's the
kind
thing?
of- yeah.
Okay, so our current strategic plan has 3 pillars.
Okay.
It is close the affordable housing gap, laser focus on our residents, and ensure our mission endures. And so we want to be really thoughtful and strategic about expansion.
Okay.
As you said, we have 36 properties all in Franklin County. We have one that overlaps on the Fairfield, but all of our development work has really been within our county. Most of it in the city of Columbus, but we do have properties in Reynoldsburg, Grove City, and some of the surrounding communities. But we see ourselves being able to continue to grow maybe to that next ring,
Okay,
to that
yeah.
next suburb. So we've had good conversations with partners in Delaware, and looking into Fairfield County and looking into Pickaway. And because our Central Ohio market is so vast, physically large, we really think there's opportunities around where like Rickenbacker is for workforce housing. Those jobs are warehouse and processing jobs. They're $10, $12 an hour.
Yeah.
Where can we site
And
a
there's not
project?
a lot of housing
and there's
down
not
there.
a lot of
Yeah,
housing down
yeah.
there. And our transportation is trying to fill that gap, but wouldn't it be beneficial to the community if housing was there alongside where the job creation is? So we do see that as an opportunity for us to continue our growth, as well as we've been looking at, again, I said we typically were in a niche where we were serving people between about half of the area median income. We really see ourselves growing up to the area median income at 100%. You know, as we said, what's being produced right now is a lot of higher end
Right.
market rate housing.
Right.
Where do people who make $60,000 a year,
Right.
but can't afford a $1,500 a month rent for a 2-bedroom? Where are they going?
Right.
And we see ourselves being able to fit into what's been called workforce housing,
Right. Right.
which is over more closer to the average income. Where do those people fit? And we've been talking to some partners about some opportunities for us to do that kind of development work
Okay,
too.
and that's partners with on the private development
Yes,
side?
private development
okay,
side.
okay.
We were founded by a private partnership. So, City of Columbus and development community came together to found Homeport. And so we've had tremendous success with for-profit partners. Casto has been a tremendous partner with our Barrett project. And we look to do additional partnerships like that. We look for other ways to solve this growing affordability question.
Yeah.
As everybody's talking about it, it's a very hot topic right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah, yeah.
which is good, which is
Right.
great. There's a lot of exposure for the need. So now how do we translate that into more production and
Right.
more activity where people are actually getting more housing?
Right. Well, that's funny. I was going to ask you because I feel like I've noticed, and probably a lot of people have noticed, there's just the awareness has grown about affordable housing as a issue. And I take it you've noticed that too.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if do you see that as kind of the first step, and then we need to actually take that awareness and run with
And
it?
run
Is
with
that,
it,
yeah.
yes.
Do you see that happening? Do you,
I see us at having the conversations. So now the running part is where
Yeah.
we need to get.
Right.
And I think we can learn from our peer cities. We can learn from our sister cities in Austin and Denver and Indianapolis and Charlotte, and we can possibly head off some of the crisis that some neighborhoods and communities are in across the country by some strategic investments in affordability today. So how do we, the community land trust that recently got started, that's one piece of affordability. And so how do we do more work like that and put the resources behind it? It's going to take money. And, you know, we get down to it, it's going to take financial investment from the public and private sector to be able to create more production to meet the growing demand.
Yeah, right. I think it's interesting when we talk about suburbs and where people choose to live. Schools is always an issue, and I know. I heard you at the CMC luncheon. I heard you say something interesting about the project you have on the Near East Side with the North of Broad homes. And can you just tell us a little bit about that in terms of? I know you had owners there with school-age children and kind of how that market has worked out.
So Near East Side is near and dear to our hearts. We've been working on Near East Side since 2004, and we built and sold 70 single-family homes and condos. Tremendous experience seeing the revitalization between the Lincoln Theater and the Pack neighborhood coming together, or the transformation at Poindexter. And we were right in the midst of building houses and doing a lot of place-based community development strategies. At one point, we owned and ran our own art gallery at the Lincoln Theater. We done community cleanups. We did business cleanups. We did exterior improvements, and really were present with that neighborhood as it was going through a lot of change, and have celebrated that. But market is market. So when people were buying homes on North of Broad, they also were asking themselves, what happens when I have school-age children, or I want to make a change in my lifestyle? Am I going to be able to sell my house because of the school? And that's not our space. So I think we have done a good job as recognizing what we're good at and what we're not. It's not our space to interact with the school and affect that kind of change. So over the course of the years when we were on the North of Broad neighborhood, PAC came into being, which is Partners Achieving Community Transformation. And one of their tasks that they committed to was transforming the feeder pattern in the Near East Side neighborhood. That changed how people felt about their schools, changed how they saw the quality of the neighborhood schools. And then you start to see better and increased enrollment at those schools. They engage with parents and administrators, teachers, students in order to bring that together. And of course, OSU Hospital made a tremendous investment to be present as part of that feeder pattern. And so you saw, again, people change how they felt about their neighborhoods. I often think about, when we talk about opportunity areas, not just how do we have people move to or living in opportunity areas, how do we create opportunity areas? And I would say that's one example. Wyland Park, which we weren't building there, but Wyland Park very similarly went about a transformation of their school system at a parent and student and administrator level.
The school right there in the neighborhood.
Right there in the neighborhood, so that now that's a school people want to be in, and that changes how people feel about where they live.
Right, and just generally that changes if people think that there are choices, there are options in a neighborhood for a school. Great. Well, I mean, it's a big topic. There's a lot to, and I feel like a lot of times just because of the scale of it. I mean, I know there's numbers out there about sort of how far behind we are in terms of housing and how much affordable housing we need, and it's kind of can be daunting to think about. So I like to kind of end these kind of conversations on a optimistic note. I mean, what do you see now happening in Columbus that gives you hope for the future in terms of affordable housing?
Like you said, the conversation, the fact that we're having a conversation and that so many parties are interested in how do we address housing? How do we integrate housing and into our broader development plans? And how do we as a community make it a goal that everyone in our community can live in safe, quality, affordable housing. And that in and of itself is an encouragement. Also very encouraged by the work of the Affordable Housing Alliance of Central Ohio. They've been working with the city and with our county partners on establishing a regional fund for housing development. The city has made a recent commitment of $50 million out of their upcoming bond issuance that would be for affordable housing. Those are big topics. We've had great success with some of our suburban partners. They haven't always had the amount of resources, but even being able to be welcomed into a community like we were in Whitehall. We have 3 different projects that we've done in the city of Whitehall. And so as those barriers come down, so as people start to embrace the idea of, okay, what do we want our community to look like? Do we want a place for everyone?
Right.
And where are the right strategic investments that can support that? I think we have a bright future and that we can solve this problem the Columbus way, as we often say.
Great. Well, thank you for speaking with us. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.
It's great to be here.
Thanks.